So to make sausage rolls, I'm going to take my flaky pastry and unwrap it, and I want to roll it out into a large rectangle. Should do it that way. So I'm going to turn it so it doesn't stick. So that's about the right length. I'm going to use a pack of 6 sausages. So I want the length to be approximately 3 sausages long. And I'm trying to keep it into a neat rectangle. Which I think it probably does need to be just slightly longer. Oh, I don't know what that is. So that's my pastry ready. Something I mustn't forget to do is actually to switch the oven on. So if it's a normal conventional oven, have it on 200, or a fan oven 180 or 185, and a gas oven, gas 6. So the ingredients I need are a pack of 6 sausages, and I need to skin them. So to skin them, I'm going to use a small knife and just slit the skin, and then you can peel it away. So I've done most of these, I've just got 2 left to skin. Then I've got 1 small onion that I've peeled and I've finely chopped it. And then I'm going to use some mustard. And for the glaze, I'm going to use an egg, but I'll talk about that when I come to use it. Now, as I want to cut this, I'm going to move it onto a board. And what I want to do is to cut it lengthways down the middle. Then I'm going to take my mustard. If you've got it in a pot, you could just spread it with a teaspoon. This one, I can actually pipe it out straight from the tube. So a line down each piece of pastry. I'm going to spread it a little. And then I'm going to divide my onion between the 2 pieces of pastry, placing it over the mustard. So it's down the middle strips of the pastry. It may not take all the onion. So that's the onion done. So now I'm going to place 3 sausages on top of each piece. And I'm just going to press them together at the joins. Now what I want to do is to bring the pastry over and stick them together. So for the pastry to stick, I've got some water in a bowl and a pastry brush, and I'm going to brush some water over one of the sides of the pastry. Then I'm going to bring the top over and if I move that slightly, I'd normally do this so it is facing towards me, but so you can sort of see what I'm doing, I'm actually sealing the edges so they're on top of each other, and I'm pressing in with that part of my hand right by the base of the sausages. Now I want to cut along this edge where I've joined it to give a nice straight edge. And I'm going to cut off either end. Because they're never very neat, but I call them the cook's perks because I still cook them. And you can put them on the baking tray. And then it depends how big you want these to be as to how many times you cut the dough. If you want little cocktail ones, you can cut them into small pieces. If you want them as a lunchtime snack, perhaps just cut each strip into 3. I'm going to do fairly small ones. I'm going to cut each strip into 6. Put those onto my baking tray. Now the baking sheet, I've got a silicone reusable liner on it. If you don't have one of these, I'd suggest cooking them on a sheet of baking parchment so that they don't stick to the baking sheet. So this one, it's the same process again. Bring the top over. Again, I'll do it this way so you can see what I'm doing. Bring it right over, and then I'm using that part of my hand to press down well to seal it. And neaten that edge. Then cut off the ends. If you get any meat on your knife, just wipe it clean with a damp cloth or a piece of kitchen roll. And then I was cutting mine into 6, so I cut it into half, and then each of those into 3. And place them on the baking sheet. And the little end bits as well. Okay, so the next thing will be to glaze them, but I'll just clear this for a moment. So before baking the sausage rolls, they look best if they're glazed with some beaten egg. Now I could just crack this egg into a bowl and beat it, but you actually get a smoother glaze with less streaking if you sieve it. So I'm actually just putting it through a tea strainer, or you could use a sieve into a bowl. I know it seems like extra work, but it does give a better finish to the glaze. So I'm just using a small fork to break it up. So doing this, you'll make sure you don't get any eggshell in the glaze. Okay, so that's nearly gone through now. So what I'm going to do before baking these is just to make some little lines on the top of the pastry. So I'm going to cut 3 diagonal lines onto the top of each. So not cutting all the way through, but just scoring the pastry to texture it. And I'm also going to use a small knife just to make sure that none of the sausage meat is hanging out of the pastry. So I'm neatening it up. So now the egg has drained through that, I can use it as a glaze. So I'm using a silicone pastry brush because traditional brushes have bristles on and they can come off quite easily. But with a silicone one, they don't shred the bristles, and if a silicone one should break off, it's quite easy to see it and then remove it from your food. Because with the old-fashioned bristle type ones, if anyone finds one in their food, they tend to think they found a hair, which isn't very nice. So I'm trying not to make sure not too much drizzles onto the baking sheet, because it will burn on the baking sheet. And also try and make sure the glaze is as even as possible. And so you're covering the whole of the pastry so that it's not patchy. And I'm going to put some onto those end pieces as well. So now these go in the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes. So I actually gave these an extra 5 minutes cooking time. So they've had 25 minutes altogether. So the pastry is a nice even golden colour, sort of, it probably can't hear that, but it sort of sounds sort of hollowish. So I'm going to take them off the wire rack, and I'm going to take them off the baking sheet to put them on a wire rack, and I think they actually taste best served slightly warm. And they're best served on the day that they're made, but you could freeze them and then reheat them through in a warm oven if you wanted to before serving. If you wanted to make a small size ones to serve at a party, that would be a perfect way of doing it. Anyway, there's the finished sausage rolls.